Hey, we have an awesome one today. Today we have Scott Ohlund from Optimum Data Solutions. How you doing, Scott?
Doing well. How you doing, John? Good to be here.
Fantastic. Thanks for joining and being on the podcast. So I usually start with the first question of how did you come up with your Salesforce consultancy agency name?
Great question. So back in the day, 20 years ago, I was not doing Salesforce. I was doing ERP consulting, and I had an opportunity. I was working for a consulting firm and had an opportunity to be able to break out on my own. And I had a hard time coming up with names. I'm like, I didn't have AI back then. I didn't have good websites for company names and so forth. So I just came up with something probably pretty boring, Optimum Data Solutions back in the day. And I've had the LLC around for 20 years. So
I
I,
I
I
have a,
probably I probably need to rebrand.
I'm kind of the same way. I like 10, 12 years ago, I had Peak 360 IT. So it was all about Summit, Apex, 360-degree view, IT, kind of the same thing.
Yeah.
But I agree. I think I'm looking to rebrand as well. So starting on the ERP space and consulting, how did you transition then into the Salesforce world?
Good question again. So my journey is kind of interesting. So I started off 25 years ago in the IT world. I'm dating myself a little bit. Did some Linux and Unix, cutting my teeth as far as administration goes. Moved over to the application side, got closer to the customer. Focused on PeopleSoft and what's called, it used to be called ADP Enterprise. And while I was there, I did architecture, I did development, administration. While I was there, PeopleSoft is a legacy ERP solution. It's like 1995 called and wants its ERP back. And this is like 2010. It was very, very difficult to be able to integrate with. Web services, SOAP at the time was very, very hard to do in PeopleSoft, connect to the enterprise. And then you're talking about financials and HR and payroll and supply chain for the entire company. So it needs to integrate. So a lot of times companies will go around that and they would do database links or database views. And that was an awful way to integrate with as far as a truly enterprise solution. So my former employer was considering purchasing some licensing for Salesforce, not only for a CRM solution, but also for a completely different approach to a dev stack as far as creating custom applications. So this was 2014, 10 years ago. I attended a one-day workshop where a bunch of internal employees sat down, 30 of us into a room for the entire day. And, they had some canned exercises where we created like a real estate app with, GPS coordinates and so forth. You can list on there. It's very simple. But what was amazing, John, was how simple time to market was in creating an app. It
Right.
wasn't the old way of doing things. You could have a working app within, even back then with Salesforce Classic, how horrible that was as far as the UI, very quickly. And then at the same time too, what integrations were near and dear to my heart. And what I loved about Salesforce was it's an API first platform. Every standard object or field, boom, it's API enabled. Even when you create a custom object or custom field, it's automatically available. And so I very quickly realized, I know about Salesforce. I know it's pretty ubiquitous in the sales and service world. Just for personal satisfaction, I'm also very curious as a person in my nature. I need to switch over. So I started switching over to Salesforce extremely quickly.
Nice.
So right after that. So that's a little bit about my story.
So everyone mentions like they got into the ecosystem by being an accidental admin. So did you, even though you're interested, did you consider yourself, or do you consider yourself an accidental admin at that point, that you kind of just, not that you tripped into it, but is that part of it as well, that you were getting trained to help support the system, to learn the system and become an admin without even really knowing it at the time because it moved so fast?
So I was able to move into Salesforce pretty quick because of my previous leadership and architecture that were, experience that were non-related. So I was actually able to, John, to start, what I did first of all is like, I just started with my own dev org. I started going to the local monthly meetings for admin and dev, just eating, drinking, and breathing Salesforce very quickly. My first gig in the Salesforce world a little bit was for a Salesforce consulting company called Simplist here in the Salt Lake area. Have you ever heard of them? And just being around the Salesforce technical folks and so forth. And, as I ran and managed a development team, I was like, wow, I got to do this. So it was literally a matter of probably 6 to 12 months where I was just learning and doing on my own. And then with marketing and selling, I was able to jump into actual hands-on development work really quick, developing Apex. And at the time of Visualforce and LWC was starting to come around with Aura components, but I was able to jump on different projects really, really quick.
So it sounds like you brought in, because PeopleSoft is a beast. Like if you come from a IT or you've been around a while, you've kind of seen it all. So did you bring, sounds like you brought a technical background into learning Salesforce versus a non-technical becoming an admin. You came from kind of the development side.
Right. Development, application administration, best practices with architecture. Before I got to Salesforce, I also had MuleSoft integration experience before I touched Salesforce. So all that was able to translate really quickly into Salesforce. I was able to get speed, in my opinion, pretty fast.
Perfect. So then what challenges, it seemed like it went fairly good. Did you have any significant challenges getting into the Salesforce ecosystem, doing deployments, learning certain aspects that were kind of obstacles, challenges? You're like, hey, what's this?
Well, it's getting the first gig. It's getting the first opportunity. Like, well, what's your real experience? Well, I've created a dev org and did all these cool projects and everything. What you want to take a look? It was being patient and being relentless. I had a couple of management opportunities managing Salesforce teams. That helped quite a bit. And then when I was managing the Salesforce teams, I was also doing Salesforce hands-on work as well too. So that helped out. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, because I think Salesforce partners, especially people starting out that first project, especially as an agency, you're trying to do it on your own, right? They're always like, let's look at the App Exchange, at your rating, how many projects, case studies.
Right.
So then how did you get around that? How did you get around providing case studies, even though necessarily you might not have done projects, but you kind of did, and getting the clients, the first ones especially, comfortable that you were the guy to go to?
So it was a little bit of luck. I kind of posted my resume on one of the online services and just said, hey, this is functionally what I can do in Salesforce. And then it grew from there. Recruiters started contacting me. Hey, a local company, supply chain company down, and for example, down here is looking for a part-time developer, 20 to 30 hours a week. And I latched onto that really quick, and I was able to show value. But it was luck. It was good fortune as well too. It was also too that the market was going nuts. Back then. So
right, there's always those periods in the Salesforce ecosystem where things go crazy, like the 2020, the digital transformation, the mobile. There's always those periods, right? You got to kind of jump in the river.
Yeah.
Yep. So then, how have you seen? Right, you started around 2014. It's 10 years or so, ballpark. How have you seen the Salesforce ecosystem transform over the last decade, from like a platform and just talent perspective in the overall ecosystem?
Yeah, so it's been interesting observing the journey, observing the ecosystem as it grew and as it's grown and expanded. 10 years ago, it was Salesforce Classic, ugly looking UI. Thankfully, started moving to Lightning pretty quick. So that's one big change. Going from Visualforce to Lightning Web Components, more modern development, it's been huge. I see a lot of multi-cloud implementations now. It's just not Sales Cloud. It's just not Service Cloud. It's Sales and Service, Experience Cloud as well too, Commerce Cloud maybe. That's what I see a lot. And one more thing is Salesforce as a platform has really become a centerpiece. It's just not a thing sitting off the side anymore like a glorified Rolodex tracking sales. It really is. It's enterprise worthy, and it sits in the middle of the enterprise. It does so much. So that's those are the changes I'm seeing, and then of course with data cloud and AI as well too, in the last couple of years.
So how have you stayed up on top of all the latest technologies and trends, and how do you keep up to date with everything going on in the ecosystem with all the different clouds and the
Yeah,
technologies and everything coming out?
learning on the job. Like the first time I touched Experience Cloud, or last at the time it was called Salesforce Communities. Sure, I can do it, and then go home and figure it out. I mean, I wasn't fibbing or lying about it. I was like, I was just confident in my ability. I was like, I can do this. I can figure it out. I can, I'd run home in the nighttime and figure it out, and then come back the next day with an answer. Um, Also, too, Don, I'm a very curious person by nature. I love to learn. I will get up like this morning in fact, 4 o'clock in the morning just to do Salesforce. So that's how I keep up with it quite a bit. As you know, the platform and the ecosystem is very wide and very deep, and there's never ending opportunities to learn. So that's what keeps me engaged after 10 years as well.
That's a great point. Um, if you look at some of the best people I know in the ecosystem and that are in software development or technology is, right, if you look at a resume, they might not look crazy awesome because they don't spend a lot of time just jotting down keywords and like a lot of clouds and technologies and making the biggest, longest resume per se. But they actually usually have even the least certifications and the least things on their resume, but they're absolutely like the best of the best. And the reason
Right.
is because they have a background in technology. They came up through the ranks doing integrations, APIs, web services, custom development, Java,
Right.
MuleSoft, and coming into the Salesforce platform itself. And they're just rock stars because they have such a solid foundation, even though their resume not look like it or this might not look like it, but they're the best of the best. Like what you're saying is, I think people that can quickly jump into things and catch on to things and learn things and do things is I think what clients and customers should start focusing on, and hiring managers, companies that are looking for Salesforce talent, like look for the people that have broad tech backgrounds, have software development backgrounds, and they can pretty much learn anything, even though they might not have, let's say, marketing cloud on their resume, but they have everything else. It's like, still look at those people and those candidates
Yeah.
and those companies.
Right. And you make very good points, John. So in my opinion, at the end of the day, it's just zeros and ones. You can teach a monkey technical work. But as you know, to be successful in the Salesforce consulting world, in my opinion, it really comes down to soft skills. That
Right.
having both those together, because it is difficult to teach someone soft skills, that leadership and things like that. But you're right on so many different accounts.
Yeah, that's awesome. And then so you got your agency going, and then I think the last 10 years you've been working on projects. So I think I think from what I know from you, I mean, we talk a lot. It sounds like you have specific ICPs and clients
Yeah.
and companies that you essentially target. So who are some of the companies, like who's your main ICP, your ideal clients that you like to work with that you provide services for?
So my experience has been varied, pretty wide. I mean, I've done project work from everything from typical software startups to universities with Education Cloud. But like you and I talked about, when you're talking to everybody, so the thing about that is the experience is able to come up pretty quick, pretty fast because of the exposure. But to really excel, so what I do is now I focus on one ICP, high tech startups in the software world, SaaS world, founders and owners, uh, high tech startup leaders, companies between 1 and 100, early stages. That kind of like you and I talked about before. When you talk to everybody, you're talking to no one.
Right.
And
Right.
when you niche down, I found actually, even though you're eliminating some of your potential ICP, at least you think you are, kind of counterintuitive. You're actually digging into your ICP more. You're actually expanding your market, your total addressable market, your TAM. So that's my ICP is what I do pretty much.
That's awesome. And then so to expand on that, I mean, what do you typically use? Is it, LinkedIn, social media? Then how do you then go and talk to your market, and what are your lead gen strategies from that standpoint?
Yeah. So I used to do a lot of cold email outreach 2-3 years ago. I would buy lists and names and so forth and email addresses and automate that and send out emails. And back then, cold outreach like that somewhat worked still. It's interesting, but in my opinion, it no longer works. So right now, what I do is just social selling on LinkedIn, establishing my brand, focusing my posts on my ICP, establishing credibility, experience, authority, things like that. So that's what I do right now, just primarily that. I'm thinking about going to maybe email newsletter. That'd be interesting to go into as well too. But right now it's LinkedIn.
Yeah, it does seem like it always kind of goes back and forth, right? It's like social, then email, email's dead, email's alive.
Yeah, right.
Right. The C's always shift. So to back it up just a tad, there's a lot of people still looking to have conversations every day with people that are looking to enter the Salesforce ecosystem. People that are maybe looking to switch careers, or they want to leave what they work in finance or accounting, and just try something different. I guess, what's your perspective and outlook on people that are looking to join the ecosystem and get into Salesforce, and what recommendations would you give folks that are looking to jump in?
So one of the great things about Salesforce is the community, the Ohana. Things are not hidden behind paywalls. You can go to Trailhead and spin up a dev org. So take advantage of learning opportunities as well too. Just read, eat, breathe, and drink Salesforce as much as you possibly can. Volunteer for nonprofits you can, or projects. But in 2024, as we are coming into the new year, the deck unfortunately is stacked against you if you're new and you're trying to break into the Salesforce ecosystem. It goes back and forth. As the business climate continues, in my opinion, to pick up, you're probably going to see more opportunities for junior folks to jump in. But right now, it's pretty tough. You can do branding, you can just build in public, so to speak, but it's hard. So I don't have any real clear answer there.
It's good, because that's kind of my next question as well. I can just see you're a pretty motivated and inspired guy. So I'm assuming a lot of it is being motivated and enjoying the Salesforce side of things. But how do you stay motivated and inspired doing what you do and doing Salesforce and doing it kind of year after year, month after month?
Yeah. So you already answered the question. Doing what you're passionate and interested in. I turned my hobby of buying my first personal computer back in 1996. I was like, wow, this is fun. Messing around with Windows 95 and Linux back in the day. And
right,
I was like, this is cool. I could see this turning my hobby into a career. And that's what I did. So no matter how much money I can, make and so forth, if you don't enjoy it, if you're not passionate about it, if you're not motivated, it does not matter. It's like the equivalent of digging ditches. It really is.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah. So whatever, you got to find in your life what you enjoy, you're passionate about, and then just go do it.
That makes sense, because if you're doing it just for the money, or because you're in an accounting department, or you do XYZ, you're a nurse. I don't know, I'm just throwing stuff out there. If you really aren't interested in tech, and it's something that you're just doing maybe to make more money, that I think, even kind of what you're saying, that might not be a good fit
Right.
to just jump in and learn technology. Because even I've had discussions even with people, even on this podcast, about even the difference between an admin and a developer. If you're an admin and if you don't even like develop, like if you don't like coding or doing APIs or doing web services, Apex, all that kind of stuff, even that is tough within the ecosystem if you don't really have an interest in development. And on the flip side, a lot of developers don't have interests in being admins or doing configuration work. So even within the ecosystem, I think passion and motivation and interests are important to succeed.
Right. True. And I would add as well too, if you want to be a good developer, you better know the hands-on config and declarative work, the admin side, because you got to know where the line is in the sand. In my opinion, you have to know both, because if you're always suggesting some code at the end of the day, in some ways you're creating tech debt for the organization. That's hard to resolve. So yes, you're right, but in order to be a good developer, in this case, you have to be a good admin, in my opinion. That's my perspective.
I think you've hit it's such a challenge in the industry. It's such an interesting topic. It is the cause of tech debt. I think on multiple different sides, the analysts, the admins, the developers, doing what they're comfortable with, doing what they know. It's like if you're walking around with a hammer, everything you see is a nail. I think that's one of the
Right.
examples out
Yeah.
there that someone mentioned. But it's true. And then it just takes the whole implementation down one path. Typically, it's highly customized with code, or it's highly configured. And it's hard to decouple that and make it a truly scalable, efficient system
Uh-huh.
that can scale easily when that happens. So who's, just to kind of throw one question out at you, who's mainly the role or at fault when those type of things happen? If is it the developers? Is it the app manager? Is it the architects, either Salesforce or non-Salesforce architects that are driving projects? Who do you think ultimately is causing a lot of those issues where things are getting implemented the wrong way? Again, back to the hammer and nail analogy.
I think it's kind of a shared blame, shared responsibility between the business and the technical delivery team. If the business, I've had a project recently where the business was extremely aggressive. They wanted the solution 3 months ago, and they did not care that the solution was not built for purpose. It was not scalable. It was not built with best practices and design and architectural principles. They didn't care. It was like, guys, your org already is a disaster. So in that case, it was the business pushing it, but at the same time too, if you're given enough time to really think about it and it doesn't get implemented correctly, if you have an architect or solution or technical architect involved, it kind of falls on them, in my opinion.
Right.
Because at the end of the day, a developer will take user stories and requirements and just develop them. But if they don't have the architectural big picture or design principles involved, they may or may not develop according to industry standards. So it's the architect too.
That's an interesting, I guess, story that you brought up, where the business just kind of wanted it to get done. I see that side as well, because ultimately businesses want to generate revenue, generate profit. They want to get things done. And on the flip side, on the tech side, we're saying, hey, let's do it the right way. You're
Right.
going to be upset 2 years down the road, right, on where things are, and it's going to cost more. And those discussions between the business side, trying to get the business running, they have milestones, they have services to release, products to get out there, revenue to make. And then IT is constantly in this right back and forth on, let's do it the right way, let's make it scale. And having that ability on both sides to try to figure out the sweet spot is always such a challenge, because the priorities are so different. From a compensation perspective, they need to get X done. The IT side is trying to get Y done, and everyone's getting not judged, but rated, or whatever you want to call it, based on their priorities. So that's probably one of the biggest challenges in IT and software development and technologies, working with the business and the clients on the right way to still satisfy what they're looking for, but also making sure you're being a professional and doing it the right way as well as best you can, knowing their priorities.
Yeah, it goes back to what I was saying before. It's still soft skills, because it's always constant push and pull, right? It's those crucial conversations. Can you, as the consultant or architect, interact with the C-suite? Can you interact with the engineers? Can you interact with the end users? Are you good at, communicating risk? Are you good at communicating issues and, things that are beyond the horizon that they're not even thinking about? That's where a really strong consultant can make a huge difference, not only now, but in the future. But at the same time, when the business really pushes you there's trade-offs that you have to do. You have to explore.
Right. It is always seasons in technology, right? Sometimes you go through seasons where 6 months are crazy stress like that. You're working
Yeah,
with clients in those situations, and the next 12 months it's fun and things are going smoothly. Everyone's happy. It is kind of those things that in software development technology always come up.
yeah,
So in terms of, there's a lot of crazy things, right? Not crazy, but like data cloud, AI. The ecosystems go in this direction. There's been kind of a pause on investment, it seems like, from clients because they also are looking at what am I supposed to do next with Salesforce? So what's your perspective on where Salesforce is going, like with data cloud, AI, the next 3 to 5 years, and kind of what you see coming up?
right. So Salesforce has been around for 25 years. So they were the first solution to go into the cloud, the application, as we know, back in 1999. So Salesforce is a pretty mature solution now. It's been around. In some perspectives, some people consider it a legacy solution in some ways. I disagree, but where I see it going, especially with the leadership, like Mark Benioff has been tweeting and posting on LinkedIn recently, and uh, there has been like, well, what do we do now? There's this AI thing out there. How do we implement it? And it's taken Salesforce, the mothership, a couple years to get it together. But I think the agent force solution is the future. Being able to direct different autonomous type of agents in different capacities, service or sales or BDR or SDR type of activities, those low level activities. That way you can focus on the high level, like closing deals and so forth. I think Agent Force is a huge part of the future. That's you certainly see it with the mothership pushing that going forward.
Right.
But at the same time, too, you want to create better 360-degree customized personal journeys for your customers. Customers expect you to know more about them today. It may sound kind of creepy, but when someone gets transferred from one department to the next on a phone call or in a text message or chat situation, they expect the new person to know what the last person did or talked about, right?
Right.
So data cloud is also the future as well too. However, with just to say, but that takes a lot of preparation and groundwork in order to get data cloud, agent force, AI to work properly. But I do see that wave as a huge part of Salesforce. They're investing heavily in that area.
And it seems if I looked at different types of clients, right, large telecoms, healthcare companies, they have a lot of data to fix before they can do
Right.
that. Excuse me. But from your ICP, the B2B SaaS companies are going through growth. It seems like a perfect time to bring in and introduce something like Agent Force.
Right.
Getting things scaled at the beginning stages of a company seems like a fantastic time to get into that, and probably more easy isn't the right word, but a little bit easier than legacy large enterprise customers that have so much data to bring together first.
Right. Yeah, that is true. It is a fun opportunity to be able to do that. It's a good entry point. You're not dealing with bad decisions of the past, the mistakes of our fathers, so to speak,
Right.
Yeah. With tech debt or bad, unsanitized, unclean data that has to be cleaned up before you do data cloud and AI. So it is fun, not only with, get pulling back a little bit from like Agent Force, just helping a company move from a startup company or a high tech startup company to move from manual sales processes to an automated sales process is huge. I read a study
Right.
that sales reps only spend about 30% of their time actually selling. 70% of their time is doing manual administrative to support their selling. So that
Wow.
what that does, it creates, in my opinion, so much opportunity for automated processes. Whether, like, for example, when an opportunity goes to close one, auto generate a renewal opportunity that comes due 6 to 12 months later.
Right.
That's a big savings, So yes, agent force, but at the same time too, going from manual ad hoc processes to automation for tech startup.
Well, and I'm along those lines of 70-30. there's nothing sales people like to do less than updating systems or working on tech or pulling up Salesforce or pulling up an app. They want to sell. They want to talk to people. They want to sell. They want as much automation as possible. They're extroverts. They want to deal with people. They want to make deals, right? So the more you can automate, like what you're saying, make it as easy as for them as possible,
Yeah.
and get them 70, 80% selling versus the other way around.
Right. There's a couple of good examples out there in the marketplace that I think can help out with this. Lead Beam, which Lead Beam, which allows outside sales reps to be able to dictate verbally what's the latest updates to the customer record or opportunity, and just do it on the fly from going from one opportunity to the next is great. GPT-5 also is another solution that's simple like that, or an example of automating that input from sales reps. Same time too, it's automating lead to opportunity stages. Do you have to go through a crazy process in order to get sales quotes approved, even if they have a 5% markdown? Does it take days, or can you get a quote in front of a customer by the end of the day? That's
Right.
huge.
Right.
That approval process has got to be fixed.
Yep. Success loves speed. Sales loves speed.
Yeah.
For sure. Awesome. I have one more question for you to kind of wrap it up, but from a Scott perspective, your business perspective, what are some of your goals? Where do you see yourself? Where are you trying to go in the next 3 to 5 years with yourself and your agency and Salesforce, and where are you going?
So I love technical work. I love the zeros and ones, but I also really enjoy the sales side. I love the building of the business. So I see a lot of my focus in the next 3 to 5 years continuing to build my consulting company, get more clients, close more deals, grow personnel. My goal one day, it would be great to become like a 50 or 100 headcount consulting company that gets potentially bought out. That'd be fantastic. That would be a fun goal, 5 to 10
Awesome.
years from now. Yeah. So,
Entrepreneur at heart. So if you're so it's Optimum Data Solutions .com, I assume, if they want to reach out.
It's
Or
actually Optimum Data Solution.
perfect, even better. And Scott Ohlund, I'm sure they can reach out to you on LinkedIn as well. So it's Ohlund. And it was awesome talking to you. I could tell you're motivated, you're an entrepreneur at heart. And it was absolutely a blast talking to you today. And if you're a B2B SaaS company going through growth, need to get Salesforce implemented, you get your RevOps set up, Scott's your man.
Thanks, John. I appreciate the shout out there. It's been a pleasure talking to you today.